Welcome to Tokenverse podcast series, where we bring together creators, blockchain specialists, investors, intellectuals, and experts to brainstorm the potential and the future of Web3 technologies. This production is brought to you by DoinGud, an NFT marketplace empowering creators and connecting people who want to do good across the world. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the subject of the social layer for engagement and collaboration on NFT platforms. And we're very lucky today to have very impressive guests on today because they are all very active people in the blockchain sphere. And if you ever thought that whoever's listening, that blockchain people are boring nerds, today we're going to prove you wrong, because our today guests are basically opposite to that. And let's start with Danielle Gennady. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Pretty close. It's Danielle Gennady. Yes, Bellavita
Okay,
Gennady. That's me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know you're activist, you're an architect, and I really like how you call yourself, an alchemist of decentralized governance economies. But perhaps you could quickly tell us what is it that you do right now?
Oh, sure. Well, right now I am in Costa Rica hosting a retreat for our Giveth team. We're all decentralized. We all have been experimenting for years on how to make good decisions to direct our various projects. But coming together physically at times is really, really valuable and incredible. So we've got some of our team who's gathered here together to make some really big decisions on how we're going to continue developing our project, but more importantly, how we're meeting the needs of our community and that social aspect of what it is that we're all here that's drawing us to work together in these new ways. And it's all been a grand experiment with Giveth for many years. I have seen us evolve from a holacracy to a sociocracy, and continually striving to look at how can we build the systems of trust that we need into these tools for human collaboration that are really truly incentivizing us to work on the things that we value. And ultimately, that's really what I do, as I help build the community and guide the decision-making processes that help us agree that what we're doing is the very best thing we could possibly be doing with what we have right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this introduction. Can you tell us a little interesting fact about yourself?
A little interesting fact about myself. I left my corporate career in 2013 and have been living entirely in the gift economy since that time. So all work that I do is a gift to the projects and the people and the places that I care about. And through what we've been doing with Giveth and a lot of the virtual tools, I'm actually able to receive the rewards that I need for doing good and continue to do that in a way that is enlivening and thriving.
Fascinating. Great. You're going to be a great contributor to this conversation, I sense. Grace Rebecca Rehmani, I know that you teach workshops, you help entrepreneurs and activists develop tokenomics and governance design. But can you tell us what are you busy with right now?
I'm busy in creating a non-monetary economy. So looking at what we might evolve into in terms of how can we coordinate large-scale projects and how can we work across the globe without using money as a coordination mechanism? What other coordination mechanisms might we use?
Fantastic. And what's the interesting fact about yourself?
My last vacation in February was a Wim Hof retreat, which included hiking for 3 hours in my shorts at 3,000 meters in the snow. So,
oh wow, was it with Wim Hof?
It wasn't with Wim Hof, it was one of his trainers. I did do a workshop with Wim Hof about 2.5 years ago. He's slightly more crazy than he appears on YouTube.
Oh, is he? Okay, that's encouraging.
Yes.
I want to do a course with him now. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Grace. Suji, please tell us about yourself. I know that you dropped from university to start a business pretty early, and I know that you're both entrepreneur and also a journalist, right? But tell us
so my day job is run the project called the Mass Network. We're trying to bridge the Web2 and the Web3. So you can use all the Web3 functionality on Twitter, Facebook. And then I also have a lot of other things I did personally, like some small investment and some, as you said, I was a journalist, still contribute to some media as independent journalist, and also did some activist for several years, and still helping those activism community nowadays using the the blockchain or decentralized technology. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And a fun fact about yourself?
Yeah, so I did a while, like 4 or 5 years ago, I did some cross-dressing at the Tokyo, and actually I become a part-time fashion model at some Japanese fashion magazine. Is really fun that time. It's around 2015, 2016. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Yeah,
that's what we need, a blockchain expert who's a fashion model.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Suji. Jack, so yes, you're a former jeweler, right? But now you call yourself a blockchain nerd.
That's right. I wanted to call you out on that, actually, that I am in fact a nerd. So
okay.
So there we go.
Okay, you call yourself a nerd, but then you are into this thing, which I won't even dare to say here, is
Sesquipedalianism.
Okay.
Well, that is marking me out as a nerd right there. That means the use of polysyllabic words as a pastime would seem.
Are you going to use lots of them today?
We'll see. We'll see what comes out. Probably not. I'm the founder of a project called Colony, which is probably the first DAO framework to start being built on Ethereum, and we are trying to build what's really a sort of holistic DAO framework that makes it easy for people to start and operate decentralized organizations. We think that if this is to be a thing in the world that really makes a difference, the tooling needs to be easy, and it needs to really be effective. It needs to replicate the kinds of experiences, the kinds of good things that organizations already do, whilst also observing the best practices and approaches that we've learned are successful in blockchain and Web3 and decentralization more generally.
Fantastic, thank you. And now the founder of DoinGud and the activist Manu Azuru. Manu, do you want to start with interesting fact about yourself? Now that
for sure. Originally from Venezuela. I don't believe in imaginary lines. I don't believe in imaginary lines.
Okay. Can you?
Yeah, I don't believe in the notion of countries. I believe it's archaic, and I believe it's old and old-fashioned. Yeah, I'm an activist. I was a leader in my university. I was organizing a lot of stuff against the Venezuelan government. Yeah, that's a fun fact about me.
Oh, right. Okay. Hopefully, yes, you'll become the president of the world without lines soon. Fantastic. Great. Well, let's get to it. And so, I mean, everybody who's got television or internet connection can observe what's going on in NFT world. That every project is announcing they introducing a social layer, or there is new projects appearing, saying that the first one with the social layer and so on. So perhaps maybe someone could say, actually, what does it mean? Because for us it's all clear, but for some people who tune in, perhaps a social layer for NFT platform doesn't seem so obvious. So does anybody want to explain in a layman terms how they understand it?
I can start maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I personally think that a lot of NFTs do have a social ledger, even though people don't even realize that they do. And why is that? Is because the NFTs themselves is what is bringing people together. So for example, a lot of people that hold CryptoPunks, they don't realize that they are interconnected in a way or not. Why? Is because they have they have this collectible that connects them actually. And one of the things that is happening is that I'm seeing a lot of people coming together on Discord or on Telegram, and there's a lot of these token gated communities that are accessible if you have in your wallet an NFT. But what I was saying before is that there is a social ledger, even though we don't even notice it, is because when we bought it or when we got in, we had certain affinity to that NFT, and that is actually connecting us, even though we don't even realize it. So yeah, that I guess I just wanted to start with that, and I want to hear from others also what they think.
Does anybody have anything to add when it comes to the understanding of social layer on NFT? Maybe, Danny, how do you understand who is the social layer for? Is it for artists to interact with artists, artists with investors, artists with curators, fans with celebrities?
Well, I mean, my answer would be yes to all of that, because as humans, we're naturally social. And to me, I see these NFTs as this is an opportunity in a way to somewhat signal to one another as to what is something larger that you have an affinity to. So identifying yourself as a particular member of an affinity group or a cause that you particularly care about or align with. We are naturally drawn to the things that are what we care about. So by holding and sharing and engaging in these marketplaces, we're able to find our others is one of the things that I see. It ends up being an outcome of that. By finding what you like, you find others who like it. I find this conversation interesting in a way of being able to turn that around and bring people who already have an affinity together into more social relationships for coordinating towards common goals.
And Grace, from your experience in the blockchain world, NFT world, who do you think will be the main benefactor from these social layers?
Well, it depends on what you mean by benefactor. What I've been seeing is a lot of, again, I come from this world where people consult with me about their tokenomics or writing their white papers. And what I see is a money grab, just like all the other money grabs that there have been. It's like, oh, if we say that our NFT marketplace also has social interactions and likes and super likes and the ability to collaborate and blah, 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 then we can raise money and then we can have, well, so like I'm seeing a money grab. When Manu spoke of these Discord channels and stuff, it reminded me of this GameStop thing, right? So now we've got people who can collude to pump up the prices and then sell at a higher price. I think that's what we're going to see for the next year. That's about how long these blips last, is one big money grab. It's not that what Danny says isn't accurate. What Danny says is accurate. People want to get together in groups of things that they believe in. There's a very interesting, if you think about, let's say, TikTok followers who follow a particular person on TikTok, right now there's a limited way that they can talk to one another. But if they could talk to one another more, they might join a cause. My concern would only be is that most of what people are following is TikTok. They're rather than Extinction Rebellion, and that these kinds of superficial symbols, and right now we're seeing a lot of people following these, like, Wokistan or Magistan, as Eric Weinstein says, like these very superficial signals, trying to signal that they're in the right political category or signal that they're doing the cool thing. And I think that there's a danger if we take something as flat as like a physical piece of, or just a flat piece of two-dimensional art and say we all associate with this symbol and therefore we're alike and together. That's not exactly the same as having a group of people who share your values. So I think there is a danger of people rallying around things, and also there's a danger of brands taking advantage of that. It's like, oh, we're all our brand ambassadors, and we're just gonna, again, another money grab. So that's, you know, my contrarian view about this.
Of course, yeah. You mentioned money grabbers, and there is like all this superficial noise in the industry. Suji, from what you are observing, there is different, you know, projects announcing that they're going to have a social media layer. And from what is out there, could you put it in categories, or maybe some things are more or less effective than the others? Would you categorize what's out there already?
Yeah, we actually, you know, are involved in several, including with Manu, right, DoinGud, and several other cool projects, helping them and partner with them, and sometimes even do some small strategic. Some interesting example, as you mentioned, the social layer of NFT, because we definitely own our data, right, and the data include the social graph, right. Data including our connection, like, hey, I know you, I know other folks. There's some kind of social graph. It used to be the company asset of Twitter, Facebook. So it's quite, you know, it's quite amazing for me to see Jack Dorsey. He was selling his first tweet, because basically, you know, that's the irony part. He's still the Twitter CEO, right? He's still Twitter CEO, and he's basically pulling out a company, or used to view as company asset, and put that on blockchain and sell it as a personal asset. And then he got 2.9 million and donate the cash to the NGO for helping the African people. But the irony part is he's actually selling the so-called company asset because that's his tweet. But by this time, this is a personal NFT. This is just a very small beginning, but later on, I was always thinking that that, you know, when I joined the industry around 2016, even earlier, I always thought that what if, you know, Aaron Swartz was still alive these days? You know, Aaron Swartz is the one of the co-founder of Reddit, and also he invented a lot of things in the RSS standard, right? And we all remember RSS was pretty cool for blogs, for or different kind of interesting, like the Reddit was one of the first site adopt RSS. So what if later on, or a tweet, you can subscribe like RSS, and you can monetize them, you can sell them, and you can lock them. You have to hold a Manu NFT to unlock his tweet, and that's something I think will happen very soon, and eventually. The Web2 layer is just a platform, not really a monopolized platform. That's some of my thoughts when I saw this thing coming, and we're also involved in this platform called Stand, right? They sold Jack Dorsey's NFT for $2.9 million, so we're also involved in helping them together. But it's in early days, right? So I don't have an answer like, hey, what is the social layer of NFT? But I think definitely. It's something owned by the user, and you can do whatever you want on it, and you can program it, and eventually, if everyone on their social layer, the social network will be just owned by everyone in different form, right? Yeah.
So, Jack, I was wondering if you could build on that and tell us how, from your experience, you can differentiate, the projects which are just money grabbers and the ones which are actually going to build useful social layers on these NFT platforms.
Thank you. I was just saying, I think it's quite an interesting and curious framing at where the distinction is between those who are money grabbers, who are sort of cynically trying to extract some value from a sort of mania, versus those who are entrepreneurs trying to build a platform and a product that where they rightfully earn money on the basis of building something that people want. So, and I know that there are both of those things that are around in this space right now. But building on those points of what we see of what the social layer looks like, obviously, as we've discussed, the majority of what's going on right now is basically people who like the same kind of things. People who like punks kind of talk about punks together. That's what we've got on things like Twitter. I think the future of NFTs goes way beyond people just discussing the kinds of things that they equally appreciate. I think that I said my far-flung view on this kind of expands out of the current art and collectibles use case. I actually founded in 2016 what I think was the first sort of serious attempt at an NFT platform, which is a project called Ownage, which was about gaming and NFTs. They weren't called NFTs at the time, but it was the same principles. Because what we really felt, and still what I really feel, is that gaming is going to be such an enormous market for NFTs eventually. I can imagine a world in which you have virtual worlds in which all of the materials, all of the assets, all of the, let's say, weapons or tools or materials, whatever it is in the game, are all NFTs. And you have different classes of users and players who are able to do certain specific things with those materials. And then they need to work together. They form together in guilds, which are DAOs, and together they're able to craft certain things, and then they're able to sell them on an open market, and they're able to divide the revenues of those endeavors between the members of them in a fair and equitable fashion. And I can really believe that we'll see sort of billion-dollar companies in the future that are entirely virtual. They're entirely based on digital assets, and nothing is sort of being transacted in the real world. And what's more, because all of this sits within a composable blockchain ecosystem, all of the amazing financial products that are emerging as well all plug into this system. So we get a very sophisticated economy which emerges because of you having people being able to do stuff together using NFTs and DeFi.
There's something that I've been thinking also as well, is that, as you know, YouTube and Instagram and all of these social medias, creators, they don't really own their audience. And with NFTs, actually, they do own their audience. And that creates social ledger on top of it. Why? Is because there's provenance attached to the NFT, so you can track back who was the creator. And for the first time, creators actually can own their audience. Why? Because they know who are the people that have their NFTs. And that's a social ledger that people don't realize that exists, even without having any sort of communication ledger or anything. It already exists, a social layer on top of the NFTs that is not really evident, but is there.
Right. That's actually one of the key examples that we used very regularly when we were sort of pitching Ownage. We imagine that it's not actually only about the people that create the NFT, but also about those who own or use them. So we imagine that, for example, there could be a limited edition magical sword. Let's say there's 100 of them, but one of them ends up being used by some very famous esports star to win some big tournament. Now that one sword, because of its provenance, is going to have a very different value profile than the other 19 or 99. I forget how many I mentioned, but yeah, I think that's something that's really fascinating about them.
So would you agree with Gary Vaynerchuk? So I was listening to his interview on Yahoo Finance, and he was saying that basically in the future, any project, any person who's got any meaning in the outside world, they're going to launch an NFT project. Is that how you see the future as well?
Not necessarily. I think that it still comes, I think that the market gets fatigued easily. I think when it becomes cynical, nobody will be interested anymore because it becomes ubiquitous. But there will be those things where it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Okay. Have you heard the
sincere? Yeah. When it's sincere, then it will be worth something.
Okay. Well, how
in the
about
contrary, in the contrary, I think that actually everyone is going to have an NFT, and everyone is going to have a token as well, but they won't even realize that they do.
Everybody will be tokenized without even agreeing to it, like our data is being stolen.
It's already like that. The world is already like that. Our data is already stored somewhere without even us realizing it, and it has already a value attached to it without us realizing that it does. So to me, it's pretty obvious that things are going to be tokenized without even us realizing that they are.
Oh, wow. So you're not into NFTs, but NFTs are into you.
That's a pretty horrifying view.
I mean, as I say, your Twitter account become a bunch of NFT, and Jack, he's not control. He don't have the master key, or he throw the master key away. Hopefully, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So every action that you do for me is going to be an NFT. I think that NFTs is going to be the new cookies of the world. I think. Why every time that you interact with a smart contract, you might receive an NFT, or any time that you interact with a creator, you might receive an NFT, or any time that you assist to a party or to a conference, you might receive an NFT that proves that you went there. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, in the future, people are going to receive this sort of proof of assistant, or proof of creation, or proof of whatever, without even realizing that there's a blockchain or NFT in the back.
Right. Danny, did you want to add something, or was I mistaken?
Well, as the conversation's progressed, it's been very fascinating to me, because I look at how we can take these technologies and use them on the ground. So as we're, for example, writing contracts for how to transform land ownership and purchase, like, to me, this gets very interesting when an action that you have completed that becomes tokenized then represents your interest in being able to participate in governance or have access and rights to certain physical locations or assets. Like, this is where it gets very interesting to me. When Jack was speaking about this game and all of the things in the game, to me, that's real life. Like, I look at how is this actually applicable to how we are living our lives and changing the way we interact with the resources and environment around us. That's where I find this becomes very fascinating. And I heard also Grace's skepticism around signaling, and that there is a lot of money grubbing. And I'm aware that that happens, but in the realms that we're working in within Giveth, it's quite the opposite. It's how do we actually identify other people who care about the same things we do so passionately, that when we combine forces and use these NFTs and tokenization of those agreements and contracts and actions and assets, then we're able to do more for coordinating in those ways, and that becomes far more significant and will outshadow those who are in it for less than beneficial reasons.
That's a very positive view. But Grace, you were a bit worried about what Manu was saying, weren't you? That we can all be subject of NFTs without knowing it. Do you find it quite disturbing?
Well, there's a couple of things that are a little bit horrifying about some of the terminology that's been used in this conversation. One is ownership. Like, the artist now owns like, I'm not owned by the art that I have. I mean, that particular piece of art there is, like, that is made by somebody who made me and stuff. Like, my dad made that and stuff, but he doesn't own me. And I've got a lot of his art on my wall. I mean, the ideas of users and owning the user is this horrifying concept that has been capturing the user, and all of this is around the extractive value that we can get from each other. You know, and the same thing with like, I'm going to have my own token and you're going to own a part of the Grace token, and you know, it'll promise you some of my future services, and it's this kind of like indentured servitude token where you own a part of me and I issue my, you know, you give me money now for work that I'm going to do for you in the future. And you know, like it's just, it's all this money thing. And there's you know, this is something that you know, I think Danny and I are very aligned on, is money is not value. We keep saying about the store of value and the transfer of value and the value. And mostly what we're talking about is extractive and speculative monetary things, and not value at all. And what we really value as human beings is very different. Now, I do agree with Manu a lot about this point about we are, and Jack, and Manu know I agree with them about a lot of things, but this idea that we'll be able to carry some sort of a, it's more like a reputation wallet with verifiable credentials, right? That were issued in different places. I did do this and I didn't do that, and my predictions are good, and I'm a decent human being, and I do think, like Suji mentioned, that we'll have some choices about who we accept those validations from. In fact, we already have a lot more choices, right? I live in Slovenia and I have a driver's license that's a Slovenian driver's license. And that's because I chose that to be my country of jurisdiction right now. And I got to choose that. And that'll be similar to, let's say I want to belong to a group, a guild of people who are in the DAO space. And let's say I choose the 6 of you because I like the 6 of you. And we issue our assessment of one another. Like, oh, well, you know, Jack is one of the most forward thinking people in the DAO space. And Mano is, you know, produces work like nobody I know. And, you know, like I know things about these people. And we issue our reputation tokens on one another, and then we can have this control of who is, again, in the self-sovereign identity world, they have terminology for that. They call it a verifiable credential, and it's a credential that is verifiable by the authority that issues it. And NFTs could be used in some ways as a kind of way to do that. I would, you know, I think one of the big things we're facing is interoperability, right? How do we have interoperability of those standards? Oh, you know, Suji's came from an authority in Shanghai, and mine came from an authority in Ljubljana, and how do we translate them to one another? This is going to be an issue, and I think interoperability standards are extremely important as we do carry around our reputations in some sort of a wallet.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry to interject, isn't that what money is? Though money is the abstraction that enables you to have interoperability of the values that are created by different people in their different ways. It's an imperfect abstraction, but that's the function that it serves.
I would say it's one of the functions that it has served. And I would say you have to be very wary of who invented money and what purposes they wanted it to serve. And for example, money is anti-air and money is anti-relationship. It's like, here's $3, give me a cup of coffee, and I don't have to smile, but you do, because I gave you the $3. Whereas, right, like, but if you know, if I gave you a cup of coffee, Jack, I wouldn't ask you for money because we're friends. And so money is slightly anti-friend, and a dead tree is worth more than a live tree, right? So that's not value.
Mm-hmm. But of course, you know, finally we have a solution to attach value, you know, to things created digitally. And of course there is this innovation like this is going to be abused. But I'm just wondering, is that the biggest challenge we're talking about here, or
I think we lost you for a second, Anya.
Sorry?
We lost you.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that then. So, hello. Can you hear me okay? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I was just saying that, of course, with NFTs, finally, we are able to attach value to things created digitally. But with innovation like this, always is at risk to be abused. I'm wondering if this problem we were just discussing is the only challenge we see when we look at the future of NFTs, or are there other things when it comes to social layers and interactions between people and the creation of and selling, buying NFTs?
I just want to say something regarding to what Grace said. I understand where she's coming from, but I have to say that that money is not money. No, the other type of value that she's referring to doesn't necessarily mean that money doesn't have any type of value. Money does have value that we ourselves humans decided to give to it, and we're using money as a way of measuring how impactful is our contributions to the society. That's what money should be, but it's not like that, right? It's not like that. And I have to say this because most of the people don't really understand human and social capital. And as you know, Grace, I was working on 5 Pandemics, which was an organization that was built only with human and social capital. We built the whole platform with 0 money. And what I'm trying to say with this is that I was actually trying to understand human psychology, how people think about value. And I realized that most of the people don't really understand human and social capital. So how can we create value that can be used by anyone and understood by anyone? Sadly, the easiest way and the most, let's say, the most used way right now is with money, which is not the best way of measuring value. But again, I don't want to deviate the conversation from that. I just wanted to make sure that we understand that there are multiple types of value, but you know that human capital, social capital is actually one of the less understood type of value.
Yeah. I think that really segues very well into the question of, you know, what are some of the other dangers of social value, right? And the number of problems that we're going to encounter is tremendous, right? We're at the very beginning of something we don't understand. But, you know, when we talk about this social labor, I think that we have to first be honest about what we created with social media, which is anti-social media. We created filter bubble, we created conflict, we created very superficial relationships, we created, you know, these, you know, like this whole big pile of, you know, emotional triggers and limbic hijacking. And we created more depression among our young people and suicide and self-harm and, you know, all kinds of, you know, children getting facelifts because their Instagram picture looks better than their face. We created antisocial tools. And before we start talking about how we should put a social layer on top of NFTs, we should start talking about what did we do wrong and not do it again. Like, let's do something that actually works.
Where do we start?
Oh, that's a good question. I have ideas, but I don't want to hog the space. Yeah.
Manu, do you want to tell us about inspiration behind DoinGud and its social layer?
Yeah, so to me, social media is not working is because the way that is curated. If you were the one who curates and who decides who you want to listen and you create your own groups and you filter the information the way that you want it to filter without having any algorithms that you don't know about, but you actually are the one that might be training those algorithms in your favor, then I think it could be something completely different from what we have right now. The main issue is that first, we don't own our data. Second, we don't own the algorithms that are being used. Third, the social ledger is not owned by us either. So, and there's a lot of, let's say, walls protecting that data that doesn't enable us to, you know, use it as we please and as we want, but it's being used against ourselves. But it's just because of the infrastructure and how it is built. I personally think if we were able to own our data, if we were able to own our connections or our, let's say, interactions that we do within the platform, it might be a completely different scenario. And I have to say that social media is not all negative, as Grace said. Thanks to social media, I made incredible humans being like Suji, like you, Anya, like you, Grace, as well, like you, Jack, and Danny. So I have to say that it all depends on how social media is being used. Social media has a really good way of bringing people together. And yeah, I'm here today outside of Venezuela, talking to you guys and being able to do things without being in jail, thanks to social media as well. So
well, even if you were in jail, we could still talk to you thanks to social media. Oh no,
not necessarily. But yeah, I think I don't doubt that it's connections, but I think we have to admit how bad we are at text. Right? Like
I'm not saying,
but like if you think about somebody you love and misunderstandings you've had by text, right? And until we admit, like, we're really bad at that. We are really bad at text. And when social media is primarily text-based, the chance of having misunderstandings is very high.
I would argue that most egregious social media is not text-based at all. Like TikTok is not text-based.
Yeah.
That's absolutely horrific. But I mean, I think the challenges of social media, as you were mentioning, Manu, is that it is giving us what we want, what we think we want, right? Because that's its whole reward function, is to get you to use it for longer by continually giving you more of what you want. The trouble is that what you want isn't necessarily what you need. It's giving you junk food rather than vegetables.
Suji, what's in your opinion?
I mean, a lot of opinion from Grace is definitely very, very important, and I can summarize it. Probably not really accurate, but to summarize it, that a lot of the modern capitalism is wrong, right? So that's my summary of your opinion, and definitely that's true. We're not very satisfied with the current capitalism, how it works, and how it might drive us to either dystopia or somewhere, right? But the problem of the cyberspace today, if we call the web platform we are using or the internet we're using cyberspace, the problem of cyberspace we're living today is it's not even capitalized, right? You don't own things, right? You don't own things. It's pre-modern society that Mark Zuckerberg, he's a king of a little kingdom, and there's other kingdom, and they fight each other using a very old-fashioned way, and you have a quite modern system in most of the country, no matter it's democratic or not. But in the company system or in the platform system, it's not. It's really like an 15th century European country that you have a king, and the programmers who wrote software, that software was a military technique. Writing software and programming was a military technology, and so is the cryptography. And the software engineer or the programmer who wrote the software behind the algorithm and etc. These people are the knight, right? They just like the people. The knights in the medieval as a class is not so decent. They're not really so good people. They just they have problem with the citizens in the kingdom, and we're the cyber labor and cyber citizen in the kingdom. So I think in that part, Manu is right. Hey, we have to achieve some kind of capitalism first, right? We have to own something. We can place a bid, and the bid is probably stupid. You place some million bid on a tweet. I place 69 million bid on pending. This might be stupid, but hey, for people, he actually posts all of his painting, all of his work on Instagram for around 10 years, a little bit less than 10 years, but he was a huge figure on Instagram as well. He interact with a lot of celebrities, but did Instagram pay him? No. Facebook never pay him. They consume them. They consume the creator. And this time, the stupid money at least pay him, right? So this is the funny part. You have to price it, and then we can definitely not satisfied with the price. But okay, we have a price first. We realize, okay, that might be worth something. And then you just look up and say, oh, okay, why is there some guy sitting there and hiring a bunch of programmer designing what should we see, what should we do, right? That's how we figure out there's some problem. So we're still in that stage. You know, we're far away from achieving capitalism in the cyber era than criticize the problem. Definitely there's some problem, but the problem right now, I think the number one problem right now is there's no price tag of the items, and it's by default owned by the king, right? Yeah.
Mm. And on the positive note, Danny, you've been using the social media, I imagine, for all the positive projects you've been part of, right?
Yeah, well, that's what's so interesting to me, because like whether it's text on Twitter or Medium or video on YouTube or TikTok, it's storytelling, and we're telling the story of our impact, and that's where I see this being so useful and valuable. The piece that I think gives me so much hope right now is, for example, how we can turn this around to see I own this thing and it's, or somebody else owns it. Or the way I view this is by holding or acquiring a token, an NFT or any other kind of token. This is a demonstration of what I care about and what I'm actually investing in. I'm investing in people. I'm investing in these projects. I'm giving my time and my energy. And to me, these tokens are that demonstration of value. And if what I care about and you care about together actually produces value and becomes regenerative, then this isn't extractive, it's generative. And we actually can create healthy, successful economies around giving or investing or buying, whatever term you want to use, putting energy into something that when we do that together, we'll create more for ourselves and others.
That's very inspiring. Thank you, Danny. Maybe we could now take time to ask questions to each other, if anyone wants to ask question to anyone.
I'm actually very interested to hear from Jack about the social layers that you're building on Colony. Like, how have you been thinking about the social layers there? Because it's a collaborative platform for people to build things together. And does that translate to NFTs?
It will translate to NFTs in due course. It's something that we have on our roadmap for later on in the year, really in response to the amount of demand that we've seen for that come about so far. The majority of the use cases that we've seen are people who want to do things like Flamingo DAO. They want to club together to buy NFTs, which is interesting. But I think it's kind of only the tip of the iceberg of what can be done socially with NFTs. One idea we were actually exploring yesterday is a notion of using the NFT functionality that we'll build in, which we'll do in a very general way, as a credentialing system, such that if you have a certain set of reputations within an organization, you know, if you've got, let's say, a group of 3 different particular skills that you've demonstrated in the past, that could earn you a badge, which is an NFT, which is a credential that gives you some ability to either evidence that you're capable of doing that kind of thing more readily, or perhaps unlock some higher rate of earning that would be permitted if you're able to demonstrate that you have got that higher level of capability. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different opportunities for ways that they can be used.
Well, it's been very exciting. Everybody has been great, and it's been a great time talking to you all. Thank you so much. Please tune in next time, and have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.